Alright, our first feature match of this week is going to be Amulet Titan. Probably the best deck in the format right now. Uh, Very likely it is. The deck is being piloted by an anonymous player. Now, you all know the drill. And his opponent, Max, is playing Enchantress, a deck that has seen some popularity in Legacy, but thanks to Modern Horizons 2 is also something you could consider for Modern. Now, notably, while it does have the solitary confinement and the Enchantress's presence, it does not have the actual Argothian Enchantress, which is a really big miss. That would definitely have been nice, though it is possible that might have pushed the deck a bit over the edge. But hard to say. Hard to say. Now, Amulet Titan here is going to be our feature match. Normally, at least for the past few weeks, we've had 3 rounds of Modern, 3 rounds of Legacy. This is due to some restrictions in COVID that have been in place. And we were hoping that this week we would be able to use EventLink again. And I would be able to give you a different matchup every round. Now, unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. While we did have 4 rounds this week of both Modern and Legacy, we didn't get to use EventLink, which means we decided to go with a round robin regardless. I figured 4 rounds of the same player, maybe a bit overkill. Like, I'm sure if you love Amulet Titan, you'd love to see 4 rounds of Amulet Titan. But no, I figured, you know what, let's have some more varied content. So we'll have 2 rounds of Amulet Titan. We'll have 2 rounds of the what do we have here? Oh, right. 2 Modern rounds of a Legacy, I want to say staple. It's been around forever in That Guy Ale. Now, for those of you who have no idea what that means, because Legacy deck names, That Guy Ale is a black-white Stoneforge Mystic deck that just plays a lot of the value creatures, just a bunch of really good cards. You'll see Lilianas, you'll see Dark Confidant, that kind of thing, including the new Modern Horizons 2 card, I believe Douthie Voidwalker, 2 black, 3/2, that, aside from being excellent graveyard hate, also means you can play your opponent's cards, which that's a really good effect. We'll have to see how that card pans out. Now, for this match, I see one of the new Enchantress cards. Not sure which one it is. I know that one. That is a Banishing Light. That is going to get rid of a creature. I believe Max's creature is a Citizen Champion, I think it's called. It gets bigger every time you cast an enchantment card, which that deck has plenty of. Now, this here is a Destiny Spinner. I'm gonna have to look up some of these cards. These are not exactly Modern staples, not yet at least. But I have seen the Destiny Spinner before. Yeah, it makes creatures and enchantment spells you control uncounterable, which not very relevant against Amulet Titan. And for 4 mana, you can turn a land into an XX creature, where X is the number of enchantments you control. So it's a really solid finisher. That is another one of the new cards, which is essentially a Serra Sanctum on an enchantment creature. Which, I mean, Serra Sanctum, of course, the advantage being it's a land. This is a creature, so you need to wait a turn to actually use it, but it's... You gotta make do with what you got. We also have one of the new Enchantresses. Actually, let me pull up a deck list here. There's a bunch of new cards, which is really cool. It really is. Just the revival of a bunch of archetypes that either didn't exist before or did but just fell out of favor. Things like Lantern have been coming back, Affinity has been coming back. Alright, I do have a deck list up now. So if I can think, the Serra Sanctum creature is called Sanctum Weaver, and it just makes one color. It's not limited to white, which is a big advantage, but of course it's a creature with 2 toughness, so that's kind of rough. And I realize I'm just completely letting my cast go for a bit. Apologies about that. The other card we saw was a Banishing Light, which is essentially a Oblivion Ring. Except the triggers are merged, which is typical with the modern versions of those effects. So when if you get the card off the field with the trigger still on the stack with Oblivion Ring, you can actually permanently exile the card. With Banishing Light, it doesn't work that way. And we also have Greater Oromancy coming out, which gives all other enchantments Shroud. We also have a Sterling Grove coming out, which also does that same thing. But it can also be sacked for 1 mana to tutor up any enchantment in your deck. Now we have Solitary Confinement coming out, and I think this game is pretty much over at that point. Solitary Confinement means that Max here is not taking any more damage. He also has Shroud, but the downside, of course, being he can't draw cards. Now, the idea of Enchantress is that you play this when you have a number of Enchantress effects on the field. So, in this case, that would be either Enchantress's Presence or the green-white creature. Sith's Harvest Hand, which also draws you cards whenever you play an enchantment. It also gains you a bunch of life, which unfortunately means that at this point I have no idea what Max's life total is. I did ask both players to maintain their life totals with dice, so hopefully at least our Amulet Titan player's life total has been clear. I've also done a terrible job at just keeping track of this game. Though I would say our Enchantress player is definitely ahead here. Now, what kind of answers could our Titan player have? He needs to answer the Solitary Confinement. I think that is going to have to be a Engineered Explosives. I don't think there are any other answers in the main, because a Titan beatdown is not going to work here. and a Valakut strategy is also not going to work. Now he is looking like he's trying to find Valakut, but Valakut is not going to work with a solitary confinement in play. So we'll have to see. We have a Simic Growth Chamber and a Teleria West coming out, so I would imagine that Teleria West is going to get transmuted for an Engineered Explosives. I would imagine that's going to be played on 3. Shroud, of course, not protecting from board wipes. Neither does protection from any kind of color or something like that. So Engineered Explosives would be a very good card to have here. This is definitely a rough spot to be in. Also doesn't help that Citizen Champion is looking like a 10-10 right now, which means Max could actually start attacking through the Amulet Titan, and I think this is pretty much in the bag. Yeah, just play an Abundant Growth, draw 3 cards. One of the Abundant Growth, one of the Sithis, and which one? I think that's the Citizen Champion. Let me get that card real quick. Just make sure. Yeah, the Citizen Champion, aside from just growing bigger, also draws you a card. So it's just another one of those effects. And those draw effects in a deck like Enchantress are incredibly important. We have Sigil of the Empty Throne now coming in for Max here. Which, if I recall, makes a 4/4 angel every time you play an enchantment. I'm surprised our Amulet Titan play here isn't actually reading everything that's coming here, because there is a lot of cards here that don't really see modern play and barely see legacy play. Yeah, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. I'm pretty sure we're going to game 2 here, and I'll try to focus on game 2 a bit more, because there is a lot going on with this deck. A lot. There we have an angel. Is that that looks like a foil angel token? Wow. I mean, I know people like foils, I know people like bling, but good lord, my eyes. My eyes. So, yeah, this, I believe, is pretty much over. Max now gonna animate one of his lands. He has just a boatload of enchantments, so that's a pretty big land. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, I believe. So we have the land that needs to be blocked. We have the champion that needs to be blocked. I believe the angel still has summoning sickness. And our Titan player is gonna have to chump these attacks. And even then, yeah, it chumps, but even with those chumps, I'm not sure. I think this game is just completely out of control. Do the lands turn back? Yeah, at the end of the turn, land becomes just a regular old land again, so Max would have to reactivate that ability. It is 4 mana. I think he could activate it twice. and still have the actual 2 lands to attack with? I'm pretty sure he does. Now we're probably gonna see a transmute here. Yeah. I'm guessing on engineered explosives, and we're just gonna go for a... No, transmute for Valakut. I'm not sure about that. We have the Dryad coming out. We have a Valakut coming into play. It's like the creatures get Shroud as well, right? Well, and I mean, not off the solitary confinement. I think our Amulet Titan player didn't realize that solitary confinement just negates all damage here. That might be what's going on here. Everything has Shroud. Yeah, like if you're shooting damage with Valakut, you're shooting yourself. And we're going to game 2. For game 2, we have both our players on a mulligan to 6, a Castle Garen brick, and pass a Temple Garden tapped, and pass a Amulet of Vigor coming out. Looks like this might be a quick start. Simic Growth Chamber being played, untapped with the Amulet, making 2 mana and then bouncing itself. That casts Explore, which means you get an extra land drop, which means you can play the Simic Growth Chamber again, make another 2 mana, play a second Amulet, and yeah, this is looking like Amulet. This is looking like a fast game. We have Snook Forest, and that looks like some kind of... That is a Seal of Primordium, which destroys a target artifact or enchantment, while being a enchantment itself. And unfortunately, with that second Amulet now gone, our Titan player lost some steam. You didn't lose steam that fast, did you? No way. Sterling Grove coming out for Max. Now, a lone Sterling Grove is not really gonna be able to do anything. There's nothing to protect here, but Max could decide to find some sort of Enchantress effect. He has mana open, so that is possible. We have Summoner's Respect coming out from the Titan player. It looks like this might be go time. Growth Chamber coming out. Makes 6 mana. Play the Titan. Unfortunately, no extra land drops yet. Now, that may still be possible. The lands that the Titan finds will also be untapped. Going for haste. Haste and vigilance, of course. I'll find 2 more lands. Now, if I recall, it's not possible to give it double strike here. No, it's not. So Max is going to 14. And our Titan player is going to set up a Transmute of Teleria West. Now, if this was outside of combat, he could have actually done so with the mana made by Teleria West, which is actually kind of funny. But no. No such things in combat. Transmuting is a sorcery speed ability, unfortunately. Now the Sterling Grove is gonna get cracked. Is gonna find a On Thin Ice, which is a one white enchantment that exiles a creature until it leaves the battlefield. It also requires a snow basic to be attached to, which is why Max is playing these snow-covered basics. I mean, he could for other reasons, of course. I did for a bit. I love those Modern Horizons 2. No, not Modern Horizons 2. Modern Horizons 1 snow basics. I think they're great. Not for everyone, sure, but I like them. Now, Max has opted to play solitary confinement here. That can potentially be quite dangerous, as he has not played any kind of card draw yet. One thing I did forget to mention is that not only are you skipping your draw step, you need to discard a card at the start of every turn. If you don't, you lose the confinement. Now, it is possible Max is doing this just to make sure he doesn't immediately die on the spot, which is fair. He's just trading some card advantage to have the time to set up. That's fair. That is a quite possibly valuable line here, especially when you're staring down a Titan. Of course, the possibility is always that the Titan is gonna get double strike, so that's always something to keep in mind. Actually, no, the Titan is... I mean, the Titan itself is 6/6, but the Slayer Stronghold doesn't just give haste, it gives +2/+0, so I think Max is at 12 now, which would mean double strike would actually kill him here. So that's a pretty heads up play there. Just buy yourself some time. I'm not sure if the Titan player could have... No, actually, the Titan player couldn't have killed him anyway, right? Because, well, first off, he has to pay for the Summoners Pact. Then he needs to pay for the Tolaria West to get the second Summoners Pact. And then he still needs to play the Titan. I think that's maybe a bit too rich, so... It's possible that the confinement may be a bit premature and could have just been a on thin ice. Discarding a second solitary confinement. Okay. Now, I don't believe the builds of this deck play any kind of ghostly prison or sphere of safety. No, it doesn't look like it. So that is definitely a thing. Now there is a Sithis now on the board, which means Max is gonna be able to replenish his hand somewhat. But ideally he would like 2 here. You need to be drawing a critical amount of enchantments. A second amulet coming out. Now we may have one-shot potential were it not for the fact that there's a solitary confinement in play. And player making some shortcuts, making a bunch of mana. I trust that both players understand how this works. Let's see, transmuting for Summoner's Pact, which is likely going to find... Excuse you? Okay, yeah, I'm not the only one who has to read that card. I think that it no, not Galta. Sakama? Is it? Yeah, that is Commander Staple Zakama Primal Calamity. It is a 9 mana 9/9 with Vigilance, Reach, Trample. When it enters the battlefield, you untap all lands you control. And then it just has a bunch of mana sinks. 2 in a red, you deal 3 damage to a creature. 2 in a green, you destroy a target artifact or enchantment. 2 in a white, you gain 3 life. Now, if you've been paying attention, I think that 2 in a green is going to be incredibly valuable here. It's going to take care of the Unthin Ice, which means Amulet... Primefold Titan is now coming back. The card is not actually named Amulet Titan, that's silly. And yeah, that's gonna be game 2 quite handily there. Now for game 3, we have our Titan player Amalgam to 6. So that is something to keep in mind. We have a Utopia Sprawl start for Enchantress and a basic forest for Titan? Yeah, that is a basic forest for Titan. We have Destiny Spinner coming out for our Enchantress deck here. Now, this is most likely not gonna get answered, which means Max is now sitting on comfortable 4 mana already. Despite missing a land drop, which is pretty good. Yeah, definitely. A Rot Farm coming out for Titan. The 1 mana of the forest being used to dismember the Sanctum Weaver, which is probably gonna be quite valuable here. Never mind. Just mana aplenty. Dryad Arbor coming out for Titan here. And just enchantment creatures staring each other down. The Dryad out of Titan is actually not a Dryad, if I remember correctly. Which the Destiny Spinner is. Yeah, no, Dryad of the Elysian Grove is a nymph. Yeah. That's a thing. Sure. Cavern of Souls coming out for our Titan player, I imagine on Giant, and I imagine it probably doesn't really matter here, but... And then a Blood Moon coming from the Enchantress deck. Yeah. And an On Thin Ice. That's a very important thing, because if it was just the Blood Moon, the Titan player would have still had all those colors. Because the Dryad gives all basic land types. Now, without the Dryad, you're suddenly playing 2 mountains and 1 forest, which is quite dangerous. Not unwinnable. You could of course just play a second Dryad. So both players playing a creature, having the creature removed, and just playing it again. That's certainly a thing. Dryad, of course, also giving extra land drops. So at this point, just play the lands. They make all colors of mana. As long as there is still a Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Now, Enchantress does have some number of removal spells. We saw 1 of the On Thin Ice already. There should be 3 more. Just in general, a really good card to have It's any sort of creature deck. We of course have 4 Sterling Grove, which could find some sort of answer for the Dryad. We have the one-off Banishing Light, which could answer it. And when all else fails, we can just draw a bunch of cards, and I think that's something that's happening here. That's going to be 5 mana from the Sanctum Weaver. I'm going to play Banishing Light. Is going to get rid of the second Dryad, and now I think the Titan player is in a world of hurt. Not entirely unwinnable. Didn't quite catch what that draw was. But this is a rough spot to be in with your Titan. Is somebody dropping a Blood Moon and getting rid of your Dryads. What do we have here? I think I see a Dismember, which would definitely slow down the Enchantress deck here. But Summoner's Pact is probably more what you want to be doing here. Did our Titan player board in a Ulamog the Seas... Now, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, I think, is what I saw here. That is an interesting inclusion. I mean, we already saw Sakama. Sure. No, but it's going to be a Reclamation Sage, which is going to get rid of the Blood Moon. Then we have a Dismember, which is going to get rid of the Sanctum Weaver here. Looks like he paid the full 3 mana for it. Which, I mean, yeah, you have games like that. Especially since the Enchantress deck is definitely looking to win through combat damage. Now, in something like Legacy Enchantress, you would expect a Embercool coming out of the sideboard and being cast off a Serra Sanctum. In Modern, it seems we've all decided to just play Destiny Spinner and use our lands to start beating down. Or, like we saw in Game 1, the Sigil of the Empty Throne, which can also be a pretty good finisher here. We have Sterling Grove coming out for Enchantress. And it seems like our Titan player has managed to slow the game down somewhat. Now, he is he's by no means in a good position here. There is just nothing going on right now. I think that's a Vesuva I see. Yeah, it does look like it. Gonna be attacking with the Reclamation Sage and a Azusa. Alright. And yeah, despite being able to slow down the game a bit, it's still on the Titan player here to actually finish the game. Enchantress doesn't mind just sitting there for a couple turns. Just play some enchantments, draw some cards, not get any damage. I mean, there was an attack with the Reclamation Sage, but it did no damage, so... No, wait, it did do damage. That's not a solitary confinement, that's a banishing light. Oops. Let's see, Reclamation Sage was a 2-1, so Max is at 18 right now, I believe. But yeah, the pressure is still on here. Enchantress just way more inevitability. We already see a second Sanctum Weaver being tutored here by the Sterling Grove. We have an attack for 3. Actually, you know, it looked like Max is actually keeping his life total on dice off screen. Okay. I appreciate the effort. It's unfortunately not very useful in this situation, but I appreciate the effort nonetheless. We have On Thin Ice coming out, gonna get the Azusa. Just cantripping away here. The Sterling Grove, I believe, it got Sanctum Weaver. I'm wondering if it would have been better to tutor up just another Enchantress effect, because I think Max is sitting on plenty of mana here. Now, notably, none of the creatures that Max has right now is going to be able to effectively block the Reclamation Sage. I mean, Sithis could block and could kill the Sage, but would die in response, and right now that's your only Enchantress effect, so not what you want to be doing. Your Enchantresses are not the cards you want to be using to jump block. That's a very, very big problem. Now we have Enchantress's Presence coming out. Now Max is actually looking at some velocity. Let's see, we have a Utopia Sprawl coming out that is going to draw 2 cards. Seems in response, Max is sacrificing the Sterling Grove. I would probably go for a Enchantress's Presence here. Try and draw more cards, but don't hold my word for it. Oh, no. Of course, Blood Moon. Which is then gonna get drawn along with something else. Now, Blood Moon coming down again. That's a problem. Yeah. There's the moon. The moon draws 2 cards. And then your opponent is considering 104.3A. Because they registered Titan against a format where people are main decking Blood Moon. For those of you who don't know, 104.3A is the clause in the rule set of Magic the Gathering that says that any player may concede at any time. They most certainly can. We have a bunch more card draw, bunch more mana. A land drop for good measure. One land drop too many for this turn, it looks like. That's funny, I was thinking the exact same thing, but Looks like our Titan player saw it and realized the mistake as well. I mean, it's not like our Titan player is doing anything else other than just watching the Enchantress deck go off, drawing a bunch of cards, playing Blood Moon. Like I said, aside from just rules checking your opponent, the only other option you have in this situation is contemplate 104.3a. That is most definitely a solitary confinement, for sure this time. And now the Titan deck needs 2 answers for an enchantment. Now I don't... Yeah, there are no Sterling Grows on the field right now. So they could be removed. Like, like I say it like it's gonna happen. No, it's not gonna happen. But in theory, and we actually do see the Emrakul coming out of Enchantress. Welcome to Modern. Enjoy your stay.